Welcome to Fluent Verse. Today's story is about courage, hope, and the power of never giving up. This is the story of Emma, a girl whose life reminds us that no dream is too far if your heart is strong enough to keep going. Emma lived in a small, quiet town surrounded by soft green hills and long dusty roads. Her home was tiny, 2 rooms made of wood and stone with a tin roof that sang when it rained. Wildflowers grew near the window, and the air always smelled of bread from the little bakery at the corner. She lived there with her mother, Sarah, and her younger brother, Max. Her father had died when she was only 6 years old. Since then, her mother had worked long hours at the bakery, kneading dough, baking bread, and smiling even when she was tired. Life was not easy, but their home was filled with laughter. Every morning, Emma helped her mother prepare breakfast before school. She tied her brother's shoes, brushed his hair, and then walked with him down the narrow road to the small public school near the church. Her shoes were old, her backpack torn, yet she walked with confidence. "Good morning," she always said to everyone she met. People in town admired her manners and cheerful face. At school, Emma sat in the front row. She loved learning, especially English and science. She was curious about how everything worked, how stars shone, how plants grew, and how people could speak different languages. Her notebooks were full of drawings, ideas, and dreams. Her teacher, Mrs. Green, noticed her passion. "Emma," she said one day, "you have something special. Keep studying. You can change your life." Those words stayed in Emma's heart. But not all days were bright. Some of the other children made fun of her old clothes. They laughed when she couldn't afford new pencils or books. At first it hurt, but she told herself, "They don't know my story. I will show them through my hard work." Every time she felt sad, she studied harder. Every evening, she helped her brother with homework before doing her own. One evening her mother came home coughing and pale. The bakery had been busy, and the smoke from the oven made her chest ache. She sat down, holding her head. "Mom, are you okay?" Emma asked. Sarah smiled weakly. "I'll be fine, sweetheart. Just a little tired." But Emma could see the worry in her eyes. As days passed, Sarah's cough grew worse. The doctor said she needed rest and medicine. Without her work, the family's money slowly disappeared. Emma began to feel the heavy weight of responsibility. Bills piled up. Sometimes there wasn't enough food. She thought about quitting school to work, but her mother stopped her. "No, Emma," she said softly. "You must keep studying. Your education is our hope." Those words became Emma's promise. She started waking earlier to help her mother, then walked to school, then returned to care for Max and do small jobs for neighbors. She washed dishes at the cafe, carried groceries, and delivered bread. At night, when everyone slept, she studied by candlelight. Her hands were rough, her eyes tired, but her heart whispered, "Never give up." Winter came early that year. Cold wind blew through the broken window. The candles burned out quickly. One night, Max woke up and saw Emma still reading. "Go to sleep, Emma," he said. "You'll get sick." She smiled. "Don't worry, Max. I'm almost done." Her eyes were red, but her spirit was alive. A month later, the school announced a special scholarship exam. The student with the highest score would win a full scholarship to a top school in the city. Emma's heart jumped. She thought, "If I can win, I can help Mom and Max. I can build a better future." From that day, she studied every spare minute. She borrowed books from Mrs. Green, solved problems, and practiced essays. The day before the exam, Mrs. Green gave her a notebook. "For luck," she said. Inside was written, "Believe in yourself, Emma. You have already won by trying." Emma thanked her and promised to do her best. Exam day arrived cold and gray. Emma wore her cleanest dress and tied her hair neatly. Her shoes squeaked in the rain as she walked to school. The classroom was filled with students whispering nervously. The teacher handed out papers. Emma took a deep breath and began to write. But halfway through, lightning flashed outside and the electricity went out. The room went dark. Students gasped. Some took out their phones for light, but Emma didn't have one. She stared at her half-written paper. The rain hit the windows hard. She whispered, "Please, not now." She tried to remember everything she had studied. She wrote as much as she could, guessing some answers in the dim light from the window. When the lights came back, time was almost over. Her heart sank. When the bell rang, she knew she hadn't finished. She walked home quietly through the rain, her shoes full of mud. That night, she sat near her mother's bed, silent. Her mother touched her hand. "You're quiet tonight," she said. "Did something happen?" Emma nodded. "I couldn't finish my exam." Tears filled her eyes. "All that work for nothing." Sarah smiled gently. "Nothing is ever for nothing. You worked, you learned, and you tried. That's what matters. The world tests us, but we must keep walking." Emma wiped her tears. "I'll try again," she whispered. "That's my promise." A week later the results came out. Emma didn't win. Another student from a richer family got the scholarship. People said it was unfair. Some felt sorry for her, but Emma smiled politely. Inside, she felt disappointed, yet she refused to let sadness win. Instead of giving up, she started helping Mrs. Green tutor younger students after school. She earned a few coins and also learned how to teach. "You're a natural teacher," Mrs. Green told her. "You explain things with kindness." Emma blushed but kept helping. Soon word spread in the town. Parents began sending their children to Emma for help with homework. She tutored them in math and English, charging only a little. She saved every coin she earned for her mother's medicine. Slowly, things began to change. Her mother's health improved. Max started doing well in school. And Emma discovered that teaching gave her joy. One afternoon, as she sat under a tree with her students, she said, "If something feels hard, don't stop. Take a deep breath and try again. You'll be surprised by what you can do." The children nodded. For them, Emma wasn't just a tutor, she was a role model. Months turned into a year. Emma finished school with top grades, even without the scholarship. She applied for college in the city. Her savings weren't enough, but Mrs. Green and some neighbors helped her raise money. On the day she left, the whole town came to see her off. Her mother hugged her tightly. "I'm proud of you, my girl," she said. "Keep shining." Emma promised. "I'll make you proud, Mom." She boarded the old bus to the city with her bag and a heart full of dreams. The city was bigger than she imagined. Noisy streets, tall buildings, endless lights. Everything moved fast. For the first few weeks, she felt lost. She missed her family, her quiet town, the smell of bread, and the sound of the hills. But she reminded herself, never give up. She studied during the day and worked at a cafe in the evenings. She served coffee, cleaned tables, and smiled at strangers. Some nights, she came back to her small shared room so tired she could barely stand, but she still opened her books. Her roommate, a girl named Mia, once asked, "Don't you ever rest?" Emma laughed softly. "Maybe later. Right now I have to keep going." Emma's life in the city was full of challenges. Everything was faster, louder, and bigger than her little hometown. The streets were always busy. Buses came and went. People walked quickly, looking at their phones, carrying bags, always rushing somewhere. Emma often stood on the sidewalk, watching the crowd, feeling small and lost. She lived in a small room on the 5th floor of an old building. The walls were thin, and the window was cracked, but she was grateful. Every morning she took the train to college, sitting near the window, holding her notebook tightly. She loved watching the tall buildings pass by. Sometimes, when the train stopped, she saw children in school uniforms walking with their parents. It reminded her of Max, her little brother. College was difficult at first. The classes were faster than what she was used to, and many students came from rich families. They had laptops, new clothes, and spoke English fluently. Emma felt shy. During the first few weeks, she hardly talked to anyone. But she listened carefully, took notes, and worked harder than anyone else. In the evenings, she worked at a small cafe near the college. The cafe owner, Mr. Thompson, was kind. He noticed how polite and hardworking she was. "You remind me of my daughter," he said once. "Keep studying, Emma. Hard work never fails." His words encouraged her. Emma often returned home late at night, tired but satisfied. She would make herself a cup of tea, sit by the window, and look at the stars. The city sky wasn't as clear as her hometown's, but when she saw one or two stars, she whispered, "Good night, Mom." "Good night, Max. I'm still trying." Money was always tight. Her part-time job covered rent and food, but little else. Some nights, she skipped dinner to buy books. She learned to cook simple meals, rice, soup, and eggs. On weekends, she studied in the public library, surrounded by silence and the smell of old paper. The library became her favorite place. There she met Mia again, her roommate. Mia was studying art and often sketched while Emma read. One day Mia looked at Emma and said, "You're always studying. Don't you ever take a break?" Emma smiled. "When I finish, I'll rest." Mia laughed. "You're crazy, but in a good way." The two became close friends. Mia helped Emma understand city life, and Emma helped Mia stay disciplined. They shared stories, dreams, and sometimes even food when money was short. Slowly, Emma began to feel at home. A few months later, college announced a speech competition, "My Dream for the Future." The winner would get a small scholarship. Emma wanted to try, but she was nervous. English speaking wasn't her strongest skill. She practiced every night, reading her speech aloud in front of the mirror. Mia helped her with pronunciation. On the day of the competition, Emma's hands trembled. When her turn came, she stood on the stage, looking at the crowd of students. For a moment, her mind went blank. Then she took a deep breath and remembered her mother's voice. "Keep walking, even when it's hard." She began softly. "My dream is to become a teacher. Not just any teacher, but one who helps children believe in themselves." Her voice grew stronger. "When I was a little girl, I didn't have much. But I had a teacher who told me I could change my life through learning. And she was right." Her words came from the heart. The room grew quiet. Some students wiped their eyes. When she finished, everyone clapped. Emma smiled shyly, almost in disbelief. Later that day, the results were announced. Emma had won. It wasn't a big prize, but it meant free books and recognition. She called her mother immediately. "Mom, I did it," she cried. Her mother's voice trembled with joy. "I knew you would, my girl." That victory gave Emma new confidence. She started helping her classmates who struggled with lessons. Soon, even city students came to her for help. "Emma explains things so simply," they said. She realized that teaching wasn't just her dream, it was her gift. Over the next 2 years, she continued to study hard and work at the cafe. Mr. Thompson became like a father figure to her. He often said, "Emma, one day you'll tell your story to others. People need to hear about those who never give up." When college ended, Emma graduated with honors. She wore a blue gown and a small graduation cap. As she stood on the stage receiving her certificate, she thought of her mother, her brother, her old school, and Mrs. Green. Tears filled her eyes, but they were happy tears. After graduation, she applied for a teaching job in the city. Her interview went well, but competition was tough. Weeks passed with no answer. She began to feel anxious. One rainy afternoon, she sat in her small room, thinking maybe I should go back home. Just then, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello," she said softly. "Is this Emma Clark?" a voice asked. "Yes," she replied nervously. "We're happy to tell you that you've been selected as a teacher for our primary school. Can you join next Monday?" Emma gasped. "Yes, thank you. Thank you so much." She jumped up and danced around the room. Mia hugged her, laughing. "You did it, Emma. You're finally a teacher." That weekend, Emma visited her hometown to share the news. The small bus arrived at sunset. As she stepped down, she saw familiar faces: the baker, the librarian, her old friends. Everyone greeted her with smiles. Max, now taller, ran to her. "Emma!" he shouted. She hugged him tightly. Her mother came out, wiping tears from her eyes. "Welcome home, my teacher," she whispered. The next day, Emma visited her old school. The walls were faded, but the memories were alive. Mrs. Green, now older, was still there. When she saw Emma, she stood up in surprise. "Emma, look at you," she said. "You've grown into a wonderful young woman." Emma smiled. "You were right, Mrs. Green. Education changed my life." Mrs. Green held her hand. "And now you'll change others' lives." The two walked through the schoolyard, watching children play. Emma felt a deep sense of peace. She realized she had come full circle, from a little girl who studied under candlelight to a teacher who would light the way for others. Back in the city, Emma began her first teaching job. The classroom was noisy but full of energy. She decorated the walls with colorful posters and wrote on the board, "Believe in yourself." Every morning, she greeted her students with a smile. "Good morning, class. Today is another chance to learn something new." At first, some students didn't listen. They came from different backgrounds, some rich, some poor, some shy, some wild. But Emma remembered her own struggles and never got angry. She listened, encouraged, and showed patience. Slowly, her students began to trust her. They told her their dreams: to be doctors, artists, scientists. Emma always said, "If you keep trying, you can do it. Never give up." One day, a small boy named Leo stayed behind after class. "Miss Emma," he said, "I'm not smart like the others. I can't read well." Emma knelt beside him and smiled. "Leo, I couldn't read well either when I was your age. But I practiced every day. You can too." She gave him a book and said, "Let's start together." Week by week, Leo improved. When he finally read his first full story aloud, he smiled proudly. "I did it, Miss Emma," he said. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, you did, Leo. You never gave up." From then on, she became known as Miss Emma, the teacher who believes in everyone. Parents thanked her, children adored her, and the school principal said she brought light into every room she entered. Years passed. Emma continued teaching with passion. She also started a small reading club for poor children in her neighborhood. She gave them free books, snacks, and stories. Sometimes she told them about her own childhood. "I had nothing but hope," she'd say. "And hope is enough if you keep working." Her story began spreading beyond her school. A local newspaper published an article titled "The Girl Who Never Gave Up Becomes the Teacher Who Inspires Others." People across the town and even nearby cities read it. Some wrote her letters thanking her for motivating them. Emma smiled whenever she read those messages, But she never felt proud or famous. She only felt grateful. She often whispered before sleeping, "Thank you, Mom, for teaching me to be strong." As the years passed, Emma became one of the most loved teachers in the school. Her students didn't just learn lessons from books. They learned about life, courage, and kindness. Every morning, she walked into her classroom with a smile that made everyone feel safe. Her voice was calm and warm, her words simple but powerful. She often said to her students, "You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep trying." The children repeated it so often that it became the school's motto. Even the principal had those words painted on the wall. Keep trying. Never give up. Emma's life in the city had changed. She no longer lived in that tiny shared room. She now rented a small apartment near the school. It wasn't fancy, but it was peaceful. On the table near her window stood a framed photo: her mother, her brother Max, and her teacher Mrs. Green. Every evening, Emma would sit there, drink tea, and write in her journal. She often wrote about her students, her lessons, and her dreams for the future. Max was now grown up and studying engineering. He often called her for advice. "Emma," he said one evening, "you always knew how to stay strong. I want to be like you." Emma laughed. "Be like yourself, Max. That's enough." Her mother's health had improved for a while, but time slowly took its toll. Sarah's hair turned gray, and her steps became slower. One day, Emma received a letter from home. It said her mother had fallen ill again. Without hesitation, Emma took a week off from school and took the first train to her hometown. When she arrived, she ran straight to her old house. Her mother was lying in bed, weak but smiling when she saw her daughter. "My little teacher," she whispered. "You came." Emma sat beside her and held her hand. "Of course, Mom. I'm here." For days, she cared for her, cooked her favorite soups, and read stories to her, just like her mother used to read to her when she was a child. Sometimes they sat together in silence, holding hands, watching the sun set behind the hills. One evening, Sarah said softly, "Emma, I'm proud of you. You've become everything I dreamed of: strong, kind, and brave." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I learned everything from you, Mom," she said. "You're the reason I never gave up." Sarah smiled faintly. "Promise me you'll keep teaching, even when I'm gone. There are so many children who need you." Emma nodded. "I promise." A few weeks later, her mother passed away peacefully in her sleep. The town mourned her loss. Emma felt an emptiness she had never known before. She cried for days. But when she looked through her mother's things, she found a small note inside an old book. It said, "When life feels heavy, look up. I'll be with you in every sunrise, in every child you teach." Emma held that note close to her heart. She wiped her tears and whispered, "I'll keep going, Mom. I'll never give up." After her mother's passing, Emma returned to the city and threw herself into her work. She started organizing weekend classes for poor children who couldn't afford school. She used her own salary to buy notebooks, pencils, and snacks for them. Her small classroom soon filled with laughter and hope. One day, a young journalist visited her class. He was writing an article about teachers making a difference. After observing her for a week, he published a story titled "The Girl Who Never Gave Up," now a teacher who changes lives. The article spread quickly across social media. People were moved by Emma's story. They shared it, commented on it, and sent her letters from around the world. Some said, "You gave me hope." Others wrote, "I decided not to quit my studies after reading about you." Emma was surprised by all the attention, but she stayed humble. When the reporter asked, "How does it feel to be famous?" she smiled gently and said, "I'm not famous. I'm just doing what my teacher once did for me. believing in others. A few months later, she was invited to give a talk at an education conference in another city. The hall was full of teachers, students, and parents. As she stood on stage, she felt nervous again, just like that first speech competition years ago. But she remembered Mrs. Green's voice and her mother's words. She began slowly. "I was once a girl who had nothing. No money, no power, no special talent. But I had one thing: I never gave up. Every time life knocked me down, I got back up. And each time I rose, I became stronger." She paused and looked around. The room was silent. "You see," she continued, "success is not about how fast you run or how smart you are. It's about how many times you stand up when you fall. If I can do it, anyone can." The audience rose to their feet, clapping. Some were crying. Emma smiled shyly, tears in her eyes. That night, when she returned home, she sat by the window, looking at the stars. The city lights sparkled below. "Mom," she whispered, "I hope you saw that." Over the next few years, Emma's weekend classes grew into a small organization. Volunteers joined her. Together, they built a free learning center called the Hope House. Children from poor families came every day to learn, play, and dream. Emma taught them English and life lessons. She told them stories from her childhood. How she once studied by candlelight, how she failed an exam, how she kept trying. Whenever a child said, "Miss Emma, I can't do this," she smiled and replied, "Then we'll try again tomorrow." One day, while teaching, she saw a familiar face in the doorway. It was Mrs. Green, older now, walking with a cane but still graceful. Emma ran to her and hugged her tightly. "Mrs. Green, you came." Mrs. Green smiled. "I had to see what my best student has built." She looked around at the children reading and laughing. "I'm so proud of you, Emma. You kept the light alive." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "You were my light, Mrs. Green. You taught me that hard work and kindness can change everything." The two women sat together, watching the children. "You've done what every teacher dreams of," said Mrs. Green softly. "You've passed the lesson on." That evening, after everyone had gone, Emma locked the classroom and stood outside. The sky was orange with sunset. She thought about her journey, from that little house with a cracked window, to the city full of dreams, to this moment. Every failure, every tear, every long night had led her here. She realized that never giving up wasn't just about success. It was about love. Love for her family, her students, and herself. As the wind brushed her hair, she whispered, "Thank you, life, for every lesson." From that day on, people began calling her the teacher of hope. Schools invited her to speak. Parents brought their children to meet her. But no matter how busy she became, she never forgot her roots. Every year, she returned to her hometown to visit her mother's grave, bringing flowers and whispering stories about her students. "Mom," she would say softly, "they remind me of us, small, scared, but full of dreams. I tell them to never give up, just like you told me." And sometimes, when she walked back down the same dusty road from her childhood, children would wave and shout, "It's Miss Emma, the girl who never gave up." She would smile and wave back, her heart full of quiet joy. Because deep inside, she knew her story had come full circle. Thank you for listening to The Girl Who Never Gave Up. This story reminds us that strength doesn't come from never falling. It comes from standing up every time you fall. Emma's story is not just hers. It belongs to every person who keeps trying, even when the world says no.